Last August, police officers in Aurora, Colorado approached 23-year-old Elijah McClain as he was walking home from a convenience store. The Aurora Police Department later said that a 911 caller had reported a suspicious person in a ski mask, and that when officers confronted McClain, who was not armed and had not committed a crime, resisted arrest. In the 15 minutes that followed, officers tackled him to the ground, put him in a carotid hold, and called first responders, who injected him with ketamine. He had a heart attack and on the way to the hospital, died days later after being declared brain dead. This past June, a group of violinists gathered in Colorado in protest of Elijah's death. However, things reportedly went left. Aurora police are now facing criticism for using pepper spray and smoke grenades on the peaceful protest. To discuss what happened on the ground and to give insight on how we got here and how we can get to the better place, we have with us violinist, vocalist, and producer Lee England, violinist and producer Jeff Hughes, and violinist Ashanti Floyd. There's definitely been a series of varying accounts of what happened. Can you give me a snapshot of what happened on the ground?
In a few words, I would say when I arrived, police and people who had just showed up peacefully to celebrate the life and to have a vigil for Elijah, were interacting in a way that was very dysfunctional. The police started attacking and saying it was an unlawful assembly, started kind of really going after people for no reason. And they broke out the tear gas, they broke out the guns with the rubber bullets and started pointing them at people, the batons, systematically pushing people back. And it turned into chaos, man, off of something that was very peaceful. I recognized right away that maybe if I could get some music going, that maybe that would stop the situation. I just had a feeling that the music would be, the biggest weapon out there, and that was the only thing we could do to maybe get the situation under control and continue to honor Elijah. So, I broke out in song right away, and when that happened, the police pushing people back, they got probably within about 5 or 10 feet of me. And as soon as the music kicked in, they stopped. They started putting their guns down. Protesters, the people who were gathered there kind of started to focus on the music more, and there was less of this war between the people and the police right at that moment.
No, I have to say, just from a place of, giving all sides, in an interview with the Denver Post, acting police chief Vanessa Wilson stated, the officer's intent was to protect those attending the vigil rather than intimidate or disrupt. Where police officers mixed with the crowd of demonstrators heard people talking about rushing the department's headquarters and saw people in the crowd passing out rocks. She goes on to say that the escalation should be blamed on a small group of agitators inside the larger peaceful crowd. They highlight one man legally armed with a handgun reportedly climbed up a wall and gained high ground on officers and protesters, making officers nervous. Any thoughts to that statement? And is there any validity to that from your perspective?
From my account, I saw none of that. All I saw was peaceful people there to celebrate Elijah. I mean, when I first arrived, there were people who were already playing stringed instruments, violin, cello, violas, in like a little pavilion area, and everybody was just peacefully watching. Then all of a sudden, the police just kind of appeared and started filing out, almost as though it was premeditated. And so I saw nobody passing out any rocks. I didn't see any agitators in the crowd. Not to say that that's not a valid, not to say that what she said isn't totally valid, but I didn't see that. I personally didn't witness any of that. All I saw was a total peaceful protest, or total peaceful gathering, that turned into something where the police really just wanted to, and they were already in fatigues, they were in, riot gear. And so it just seemed like they had intent on just dispersing the crowd no matter what. But I saw nothing on the end of the crowd that suggested any violence or agitators.
Right. And so I am going to toss it to Lee, because you recently did a TMZ interview, and in that interview you stated that the Aurora police made a calculated decision to disrupt the vigil because they knew that they had easy targets at a peaceful protest full of musicians and children. Can you expound on what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, Ashanti and I, we had got there earlier in the day, and there were already marches and protests going through the streets, like blocking traffic, heading all the way onto the highway, being like occupying the highway for about 30 or 45 minutes as we walked down the highway, then back into a residential neighborhood and around the corner again. So it was like this big circle around the police department, like proximity around the police department, actually disrupting the peace. And when we first arrived, we pulled up and we saw about maybe 6 to 8 police SUVs with 4 people on the outside of it hanging on in full riot gear, guns, batons, laughing, tear gas, all that kind of stuff. And then they had just kind of like pulled up. So before we even decided to get out the car and go to the protest, we saw that and was like, okay, so we're about to get in this protest and we're gonna walk around and they're gonna meet us somewhere. Yo, this is about to be crazy. So it's like, I'm rethinking the whole idea of even getting out of the car in the first place because of the resistance, you know, to like, they're there, I see them very clearly. And so as we're walking with the protesters that are marching in the streets, we were never met by the police. There was no conflict with the police. So even though we were in the middle of the highway and in residential areas, walking through the streets, there was never anyone stopping us. And actually the police had set up barriers to stop other cars and things from like coming the way that we were going. So they had like cordoned off this area so that we could march with no problem. So then for them to show up later at a violin vigil in memory of Elijah McClain with riot gear and intent and actually engaging people, it was just like the disparity. It was just like, yo, that was, I could have saw y'all showing up, you know, for us being in the middle of the street and stopping cars and, you know, and yelling and all that. But when it came to something as peaceful as us getting together with string instruments as musicians and little kids and parents and teenagers and, you know, all arrays of people, that was a problem. You know, that kind of like, it boggled me a bit.
Well, Ashanti, would you say that particular way of going about it from the police's end, do you think that was done for optics? Just pure optics, because we are kind of in that era. I think we were kind of experiencing a lot of police departments and states taking the stance of law and order, and even the current presidential administration. So do you think that move that they did there fell into the law and order optics?
Sure. As Lee said, like 4.5 hours before we even went to go play, we pulled up in the parking lot to, you know, join the protest. And you can see the intent. Like when Lee and I passed them in our truck, I even filmed them a little bit because I couldn't believe that they looked like they were preparing for war at a peak. Nobody was really doing anything. It was really, that was the most peaceful protest that I've been to, period. Those people in Aurora didn't come there with the intent to riot. It was peaceful all day. But what I believe I saw are policemen who were preparing for a riot. By the time it got to the violin visual, they were fired up for nothing and took it out on the violin visual. You know, if there was 1 or 2 agitators, why didn't they get the 1 or 2 agitators?
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. None of this makes any sense coming from Aurora. What we did expose is how corrupt it is.
Specifically, and you're speaking specifically to the police department.
The police, not just the police department, the mayor's office, everybody trying to cover their tracks in this. They're not, the police department aren't the only ones trying to cover their tracks. You know, I feel like that whole city needs a rehaul. Well, something that I saw differently out there was I've never seen that many white people that angry on my behalf in person like that. I've been seeing it on TV, but going to Aurora, they were upset. They were truly angry, like This wasn't no regular protest. They were livid, you know, but peacefully livid.
Specifically when it comes to non-Black people wanting to support, wanting to be allies. If you had to give one piece of advice to them when it comes to just support and activation, what would that be?
I think that perseverance and just an understanding and compassion are some of the things that I would recommend that people have as they choose to be allies in this movement.
And the only two words that come to mind is show up. You know, it's like we all have been in situations where we were wrong. And in order for us to actually win back the affection of someone that we wronged, you have to keep showing up. You have to show change behavior. You have to keep showing up. You have to keep, you know, expressing yourself, you know, whether it be being apologetic or whatever it is, you have to show up in a way that is genuine, that is authentic. And if you don't know, educate yourself, educate the people around you, and just continue to make it a point to not just always have something to say, but to actually listen, and, you know, but you have to show up in the spaces where people are at, as opposed to sitting at home or staying silent, or, you know, knowing that it's going on around you, but not speaking up. You know, you got to speak up. And I feel like that's more of what we need, you know, because the conversation about what to do next is going to happen amidst the crowd. I don't think that it's going to be some type of phenomenon that happens outside of us all collecting, because we all are going to have to agree on it, basically.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I just want to echo some things Lee said, you know, especially educate yourself. You know, there's a lot of non-educated outrage going on too. And all that ends up doing is creating a situation where people are outraged, but they don't know what to do. And so they end up trying to control the situation based off what they think, you know.
Which can be dangerous, which can be really dangerous.
Very dangerous. I've dealt with it firsthand more than anybody knows, you know. And so really just educate yourself before you move, because that's been going on for decades in this country. Everybody a lot of people want to help the Black agenda, but nobody wants to educate themselves on how to do so. And so it ends up being the controlled agenda more than a helpful agenda.
Heard. What about this case do you think made the difference for people to feel outraged? Was it the fact that he was a musician? Was it the fact that, you know, he was not, he didn't have a past, a criminal past? Like, what made the difference, in your opinion?
I think that, you know, it's hard to really understand the depth of why more people are like on the bandwagon now than as before, because with Breonna Taylor, she was at her house, you know, like she wasn't even outside. Nobody called the police on her. You know, the police went looking for her and gunned her down. You know, like that was enough right there. But then to see Elijah and the kind-hearted nature of his spirit, it's kind of just like more people can identify with that, I think, than to say, oh, well, he had a criminal background, or he really was he was minding his business. He didn't have a gun, concealed carry permit. You know, he didn't have any of those things that somebody could possibly say, oh, well, maybe that was the reason why the police reacted like that. Like there was actually no reason. There was no reason. There was no backstory about it. There was no mistaken identity. There was none of that. Like they really just made a martyr of this young man who was, you know, such a kind-hearted and genius spirit. So it's kind of hard to deny that one, you know? It's like with all the rest, it's like, oh, I can come up with a reason. But for this one, it's just, it's hard to deny. Everybody has seen it, you know?
Right. You know, I agree with what Lee said. It was just undeniable that his spirit was he was such a kind-hearted person. You know, if you listen to the playback of what he was saying, you know, he wouldn't even hurt a fly. He doesn't participate in violence. his pleas, his apologizing, saying, I'm sorry. When you listen to him and it resonates with everybody, his spirit, you know, it touches you. Obviously, we're musicians, and so we happen to play the violin so we could express ourselves and show our remorse in a way that was musical. But I think that for the larger community, everyone could see that there was just absolutely no reason. He posed no threat. There was no reason that he should have been killed. They dosed him up with ketamine and he later died. And just what they did to him was just such a clear example of what's going on in all of us. I mean, even if there is someone who has a criminal past, it's still unexcusable behavior for how the police treat us, what happened to George Floyd, no matter what a person's background is. But, you know, with Elijah, you could see there was just zero reason, nothing to blame for this behavior. No excuse.
It does hit hard because they didn't just take a young man away, but they took a young man with dreams and aspirations. He was autistic as well, you know? So when my first reaction to seeing that, which I only watched it once, I don't even think I watched it all the way through because all these videos are painful.
Right.
But my first reaction was like, man, they just took that man's dreams away. They didn't just take him away, but they took his dreams away. So I felt like that was me there too. It's already hard being a Black male in this country, you know? And so when I saw that, they didn't just take a young man away. They took not only his dreams away, but they took, you know, something really special that we can all relate to away.
Right. And I think that you all touched on, just as, I mean, you all are Black men, but also musicians. And I think, I'm pretty sure you all have seen this as musicians that are actively speaking out about what is happening in the world, whether that be policy or politics. You know, sometimes musicians kind of get that feedback that they need to kind of stay in the musician lane and not really have a voice. How do you all push back against narratives like that? Because I'm pretty sure you've seen that kind of pushed on other musicians who are very outspoken about what's happening in the world. Like, how do you all push back against that?
You know, I would say that the music speaks louder than any words we could ever say. And so being instrumentalist, it's not, you know, I didn't have to say a word to push back, right? This is the first time I've really spoken about it in a public setting, but it's the music that allows us to speak. And it's the music that is such a powerful weapon against this sort of a thing. And I think that's what helps to unite people. That's what helps to quell some of these issues and this angst that we have, whether it be in the actual protest, in the actual situation, or even after the fact, as the music continues to reverberate and carry messages of love and of coming together. And like you said, I think that the allies come together around music and that we're forming around these messages that are getting out. But for me personally, I think that the music speaks louder than my voice ever could and makes more of a difference. So it's not that I have to so much say something, that it is, I have to participate and allow my voice to be heard in certain areas.
Speaking to anyone that's listening, want to say, like, whatever it is that you do, like, there's a way for you to use it to create awareness and to just show where you stand, you know? So, you know, don't think of it as, the Violin Vigil. You got violinists and stuff coming out. That wasn't something that we was gonna do. I was thinking about stopping music, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Good, man. So to actually show up in that space and then see other people as violinists and string musicians, that wasn't something that we would have just done. Like, oh, let me just show up and play my violin. Like, nah, that wasn't gonna be it.
Right.
It's horrible that we have a martyr in this situation, but you don't have to wait for it to be that dire of a situation to express yourself and to do whatever it is that you do to, like, bring more people together.
I guess, like, the question is now, where do we go from here, right? Like, this is not probably going to be the last protest that we have. I think that this case is still, quote unquote, under investigation. We in recent weeks have seen 3 police officers fired, 1 resigned for photos that have surfaced of them, in essence, mocking Elijah's death. How do we get to the better place, specifically with this case and other cases around the United States? What do you all think needs to happen?
You know, I don't have all the answers. I know what my heart feels, and I know what, you know, I think about it. And obviously we've got to keep pressing. We've got to keep showing up. You know, we've got to keep figuring out how to take action and use our allies and come together collectively. This is a difficult subject, and it's steeped in our country's history.
Right.
You know, this has been happening for hundreds of years. It's just that now it's all on film, right? So people are able to see it. But, you know, where do we go from here? You know, I believe that through time and through collaboration and through effort and through meeting and through greater minds and coming together, I believe we can find solutions. I think that this is something that's taking time, but I think that this is something that has been going on for a very long time. And so now it's being captured and everyone gets to see how, you know, through our eyes and through our perspectives. And so I think that, you know, bringing awareness to it is great. What is the solution? I think that that's something that will take more thought. And I think I don't necessarily have the answers, but I'm willing to be a part of it. I'm willing to have the discussion and I'm willing to take action.
And let me toss a follow-up question to you, Jeff. Do you think that this moment should serve as a bit of a case study to other police departments on the local grounds on what not to do with, you know, a peaceful protest? Do you think that this can serve as that example?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like the police action was premeditated, as I think we all feel. I think that they intended to come out and try and create a tense situation at a peaceful vigil and to try and, you know, create a problem. So I think it can be an example of what not to do as it relates to people being allowed to express themselves, allowed to mourn the deaths of those who've been lost, and allowed to form and demonstrate and to have a peaceful vigil. Yeah, that should be, I mean, we should be protected, not attacked, right? The job is to protect us. And so that's not what happened that day.
So I got a call from the mayor's office days later, and it moves me to think that something that I had done had warranted a conversation with me about how they messed up. So they were, you know, basically following up to, I can't say that they apologized. They said that they got it wrong and that they messed up and that they wanted a shot to do it better. So, you know, it's in the back of my mind that if I can come up with some solution aside from, you know, bring this young man justice and bring peace and completion to this family, you know, I would actually say it. But for other police departments, it's like, you know that the officers, they didn't actually spend any time determining whether he was guilty of doing anything. They just proceeded as if he was, you know, because if they would have actually just took 5-10 more minutes, they would have saw the dude go home. And there was nobody calling the police saying that somebody had done something. There was nothing like that. So for the police, if they had actually showed up with the interest of the people at heart, they would have stood down, like, give them 5-10 minutes, give them 15 more minutes. Let's see what actually happens, instead of, you know, immediately responding, you know, without any thought, without any strategy. You know, it just goes to show that, like, if that was the idea to protect, then why didn't they just step back and see how it was going to go before they just charged in and literally caused the problem?
And you talked about that additional time. When you look at the timeline, all of this from the moment that he was approached by the police officers to the moment that he went unconscious, we're talking about a 15-minute time span. So, I mean, very quick, to your point, that extra 10 or 15 minutes could have made all the difference on having.
It's a game changer. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
So Ashanti and I, after leaving that space and seeing, you know, just how impactful and necessary it was, we've decided that we're going to begin to go to other cities and kind of provide this same kind of thing, but more tailored to whatever the environment is, because there has to begin a conversation about understanding what peace actually looks like. And in order to understand what peace actually looks like, there's some things that we have to learn. And so we're actually looking to create spaces where we are able to educate people on the types of things that bring peace. Now, those are, there's various things in there, but the whole idea is that educating yourself to actually have peace of mind may give you a different outlook on life. Because if we are always continuing to, one, be reactive, and two, be in survival mode, there's not going to be a solution that comes out of that that is different from either fight or flight. There's going to be one of them. So we have to educate ourselves and begin to move in a way that's beyond just survival and reaction. Because if we are caught in that, then we're controlled. Easy button. So the objective of us going out and being in other communities is to actually have measurable results, as opposed to just going and speaking. Like, we want to see some things get done, man.
No, I think that, and that is, to your point, show up. Like, you're showing up on the ground in these communities. Is there any, can you speak to some of the cities that you all are kind of thinking about targeting first?
Yeah, well, we're really, so the other thing that Ashanti and I have developed is this idea of the path of least resistance. Like, don't overthink it. Whatever is going to flow the easiest and the smoothest, we're going to go with that because there's so many variables. So right now, we're actually going to do another Violin Vigil in New York, in Central Park, on is it the 18th? Sunday? Yeah, the 18th of July at 8:30. So we really don't have it laid out, but we're working on, figuring out the best spaces that we need to be in so that we can provide that. It's like a breath, it's like an ability, an opportunity to just breathe. Because I wouldn't even say that it's healing, because the wound is still open. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, we're that voice that's like, your mother's voice when you hurt yourself to let you calm down. Like, it's going to be okay. So
when you're calm, you can create that dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's happening.
So you all are, what you all are saying really sounds like a movement.
Yeah.
A movement.
It has to be.
Ready to go, man.
Great.
We've
Wow.
thought about this.
That's great to hear. That's really exciting to hear.
Thank you, man. Thank you for using your platform like this, brother.
You know what? I think what would be great is that if in a couple of months we all kind of reconvene to kind of do a test on like what's happened in the past few months. I think that would be great. I would love to have you all back just to have a conversation. So by then, hopefully there would have been a couple more violin vigils that we could talk about how did those go. You know what I mean? Like things that you all are doing in your own personal walk to just collectively get us to that better place. So I'm holding myself to it. Y'all can hold me to it. That we will definitely reconvene and have this conversation again.
And Ashanti, I wanted to thank both of you guys for coming to Colorado and showing up. I was unaware you were coming, and I just did like a guerrilla style performance myself to support because Elijah's spirit was speaking through me. But I like your effort to carry on that spirit and to go on to other vigils and create this around the country and to continue doing that. If I can be a part of it or help, I'm always available as well to collaborate. But I love that you came and you shed a lot of light on this. It was very
videos of you, man, and I became an instant fan, brother.
Word.
Much respect. Much respect to you for standing out there in the front line. Because you trying to save that entire night yourself, going up on the truck and going at it like you did, man. You started it off and said, I'm not going anywhere until I jam.
Right.
So, much respect to you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
And hopefully we can have you out in some of these cities too.
Right. I was just about to say that. You got to fly out. You got to fly out. You got to be on the ground.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm
right.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day. I appreciate it. Thank you.
What's up, y'all? This is B.O.B.
This is G-Eazy.
I'm Mo. This is Julia Michaels.
This is Logic. Make sure you subscribe to the Recording Academy channel. Flex.